that's been my mission, right? To lead, teach, and inspire future leaders, business owners, and business professionals to reach their personal full potential in all areas of their life so they can achieve multidimensional success and live a healthy, happy, fulfilling life with a sense of passion and purpose. That's my worthy ideal.
I don't think you've ever said that before. That sounds like the first time you've said that. Like you have that clearly memorized. You've got a passion behind this. That's phenomenal. Yeah.
Not anywhere. I'm not reading anything. That's
no. You had your eyes closed and everything, man. And you could feel it. It was inside you.
Read, and then I feel it in my DNA. Like I cannot not help myself to do it. Right? Whether I get paid for or not. Like that's just my life legacy.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Biz Dad podcast. Today, I'm really excited to talk with Paul Melella. He absolutely is crushing life right now, loving life with his wife and kids and business. Got the heck out of New York, but I'll let him tell some of those stories. But I look forward to getting to know Paul a little bit more. I want to turn it over to Paul for you to go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family. Tell us about your business, and we'll go from there.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I'm very grateful. I'm humbled. I'm very appreciative. My name is Paul Melella. Historically, I have a martial art background. So my first line of businesses are martial arts schools, a small chain of them up in New York. I currently live in Charleston, South Carolina right now. Been here for almost 3 years. But I guess if you are asking a little background of my story, if that's what I'm gathering.
Sure, let's hear it. Wherever you want to go.
I was always a little dude growing up. So at 7 years old, I was bullied, and I wasn't really naturally athletic back then. Probably I was an extremely easy target, short, not really that confident. And I had this kid named Tommy Gonzalez that picked on me and beat me up every day, did some horrific things if I go back in time and write a checklist of all the things that were done. But then eventually my parents got kind of like fed up and put me in martial arts for me to develop a little self-confidence, right? Self-esteem, learn how to defend myself. Then I trained for a good 6 to 8 months, a little secretly, going off to these martial art classes. And one day getting off the bus, my parents lived on this road called Cherry Lane. So it was like a 1/4-mile walk, right? All the way down to my parents' house. And my mom just happened to not been there that day to get me off the bus, and I had to walk down by myself. And here's Tommy Gonzalez about to, be a bully and pick a fight with me. And I don't know what got into me. I kind of went back into my little, stance. He kind of giggled and laughed. I fake low, went high, popped him in his nose, gave him a bloody nose. I was like shocked. He was shocked. This other kid, Matt Musicar, was shocked. Not that he was going to stick up for me, but I just ran. I ran as fast as I could to get to my house, which I did. Ironically, he never picked on me ever again. We became childhood best friends. I was his best man in his wedding. Funnier story, I was his best man in his second wedding. And I thank him every day for picking on me, because if he didn't, I would have never taken martial arts, right? Yeah. As a school teacher in the Bronx, we kind of look back and we reflect on, his life. There's always a story, right? His dad at the time was an alcoholic, beat on his older brother beat on him, and then he needed someone to beat on, right? And so, but with every little obstacle or challenge, right, you like to think that there are opportunities. So, that at the time, horrific time of my life turned into a great opportunity for me to take martial arts. Fast forward, I fell in love with martial arts. I was a competitor early on in my career, and I dabbled in teaching, and then I think I fell short in my mindset when I was a competitor, right? I don't know if I had that Rudy mentality, if you know what I mean. Like I always work hard, but I don't think I had the right mental game, and then we used to kind of fall short a little bit, but there's other stories I have about that. But leading into that, I fell in love with teaching and coaching. And I was a manager by the time I was in high school for one of my boss's locations. I ended up doing the college thing for a little bit, but Adam, it just wasn't for me, right?
I understand that, yes.
In college, still on postponement. And then I was fortunate enough to take over my first martial arts school from my old teacher. Now, to be clear, at the time, that location I was managing before I went away to school. I did go away to college for about a year down in Florida. And the school, when I left to go to school, to go to college, it dropped like over 100 students. And then, long story short, I get a phone call from my old man, and he goes, "Hey, Paul." He goes, "Hey, Paul," which normally when he calls me by my name, I know it's serious because he usually calls me Bud. So it's fun. It's "Hey, Bud," but he goes, "Hey, Paul." I said, "Oops, my old man's calling me for a reason." And then I go, "What's up, Pop?" He goes, "Well, your younger brother, Anthony, is losing interest in his Taekwondo practice," because I'm the oldest out of 5, right? And so all 5 of us are black belts, all siblings. We're all a martial art family. And my younger brother at the time, he's like 9 years my junior, was losing interest in his martial art training and his competition path. And then he was making wrong decisions. And the reason why he was making wrong decisions before I went away to school, I was always, I would like to think I have good parents, good family, below blue collar, middle class, mom and dad, right? And then a good foundation, but I was always finding myself with the wrong group of kids. Mm-hmm. The wrong group of kids weren't like drugs or anything. They would cause trouble, like get into fights, go to, whatever parties or bars, and they would just cause ruckus. And I kind of found myself in a not a great situation. And then that's why I moved to Florida. I needed to get away out of my environment, out of the group of kids I was hanging out with. And I was so locked in down in Florida. I was a personal trainer. I taught Taekwondo. I had a girlfriend. I had a 3.0 in school, which was like amazing. And then I get this call from my old man saying my younger brother's like losing interest, following that path, which I felt it was totally my fault, man. Like he was following his older brother's footsteps. So I left school, and I loved it down in Florida. I was in West Palm Beach, like everything was great, weather, girlfriend, grades. And then I actually flew back up to New York really to primarily mentor my little brother. And I went back to work for my old martial art teacher. And when I went back, the school was like in shambles. It went from it lost over 100 students. Obviously, it wasn't profitable. And there was a small group of kids that stayed. And I think because in the back of their mind, they always were wanting me to come back and like teach and coach them. And I did. I kind of took over that. I remanaged it for a little bit. I mentored my little brother, coached him. That year, when I got back in May of that year of 95, I think, I started training my younger brother. He won the junior national championship that year in LA. Nice. Then after then, he won junior nationals every year. He went to the U.S. A men's adult weight class. He ended up winning a national championship. Went to Olympic Training Center. He was at Olympic team trials, and we literally changed his life around. And while that was happening, my true passion was coaching my brother and a couple other good martial art fighters. I had an opportunity to purchase the school from my old boss. Except my parents really didn't have a lot of money at all. Mm-hmm. And if I'm totally transparent, they also had to spend some money in some attorney fees because I was hanging out with the wrong group of guys and found myself in some trouble. And, attorney fees kind of stacked up a little bit, right? Yeah. So, that was another obstacle that I'm very open with and like, listen, who you hang out with, you'll be a combination of those 5 people. And I was just hanging out with the wrong group of kids, getting into trouble. And that shifted me, right? That experience shifted me. It shifted me to kind of at a very young age, at 21, what my dad did do, because he just doesn't have a lot of money, but he bartered about $30,000 worth of work at my old boss's home. He was building this new home, and we exchanged the bartering for me taking over the martial arts school. And then my primary focus was to train my brother, mentor him, and a small group of like elite fighters that I was training for like Olympics. Mm-hmm. And then the business sucked, honestly. I didn't know anything about business. I just loved teaching martial arts. I was bullied as a kid. I had a passion to help other kids develop confidence and not be bullied. And, that's what I want to do. I want to teach them to be good fighters, right? Because why? I learned how to fight for a little dude, built up confidence. Bullies never picked on me ever again. Even though I'm like 5'6", I walk around like I'm 6'6", because of the confidence, right? And then we bartered. It took over the school. Nothing was working. I had a mentor of mine give me a book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'm sure you read it. A lot of your probably listeners have read it. I read it once a year, or actually I highlight and kind of after I meditate, I look through passages. Changed my life, man. I got addicted to personal growth, Adam. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, every seminar I can get my hands on, I attended. Every book I listened, I read. Every audio book I listened to. And since then, fast forward, I probably, traveled literally around the world: Thailand, Fiji, Australia. Not only the martial art competition. I studied some of the most influential leaders that talk peak performance, potential, mindset. Everything. Probably over 500K in personal development, right? And then my business changed. And I remember watching The Karate Kid. Now, have you watched this movie?
Of course.
I mean, how many times have I watched that movie growing up as a kid? But now here I'm like 20, 21 years old. I'm looking at it from a different lens, man, right? And I'm going through all this personal development, like really like thinking about my legacy, thinking about who I am as a man, what I want in my future. And I'm like, wow, I'm like the Cobra Kai dude. You know what I mean? I'm the Cobra Kai guy, and at the same transition of time, that was my original teacher. My original teacher was a 6'2", big Irish heavyweight national champion. And guess what? He taught all of us how to fight. I was raised like the Cobra Kai dojo. We'd go to tournaments and I'd be like, sir, we're not allowed to kick this tournament. We're not allowed to kick to the head. He'd be like, here's $100, get disqualified. Like, that was the way we were taught. And that's the way I taught kids. I just had no level of awareness.
Yeah.
I was introduced to my new teacher, Grandmaster Kim, who was basically Mr. Miyagi. And between his teachings from Grandmaster Kim, from all my personal development experience, really evaluating myself, evaluating my mission, right? What I call a worthy ideal in my book, that's what I call it. I started injecting not only character development, but leadership training, mindset training into my martial art curriculum. And honestly, that's where the value blew up. And people, when I say people, parents would be sitting in the waiting area listening to me teach their children, and then come up to me going, wow, Grandmaster Melella or Master Melella, but what you said, it really hit home with me. I'm like, yeah, here's your uniform. Come on the floor, train with me.
Yeah.
And that's how my business blew up, really, Adam. I literally worked on myself, and then I poured into my students, and my business blew up, like, in a good way, right? I had parents, I had families. I would have like adults, not just kids, right? Kids were developing confidence and believing themselves, increasing grades, developing leadership. But parents were going, hey, Grandmaster Melella, I lost 20 pounds, but my attitude shifted. Like, I got asked to be a partner in my firm. I just literally doubled my income. I'm like, man, how can I help more people? How can I help more people? And I did. Like, my business, vertically, it grew. And then sometimes it kind of caps out, right, in a certain demographic. And then we wanted to grow, like, horizontally with opening other locations. But I wanted to think bigger. And then that's when someone said, you got to write a book. And I attended this program with Bob Proctor, if you know who that gentleman is. And
the name, yeah.
He was in the movie The Secret years ago, and he just recently passed away. And I did some training with him, right? I was a mentorship underneath him, and we became these life success consultants underneath Bob Proctor. And in a roundabout way, he was one of the influences besides Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, strategic coach, you name them. Like, I went through it all, right? And when I had a client of mine who was actually my financial advisor. And I remember he was a very successful man. He was like 15 years my senior. And he was in my class, and I'm teaching him and his son. And I remember after class, I walked up to him. I said, hey, Nick, he's a financial advisor, very successful man. I said, hey, I'm going to be doing this certification to become a life coach. And I started telling him about what I'm going to be doing. He goes, that's what I want to do too. All right. And I'm like, really? Because I was trying to get into his network, right? I want to get into the financial services world. I want to teach and personally coach, guys or gals in that world, right? Go outside my martial arts school. And He goes, me too. And so what happened is him and I started talking to each other. My childhood best friend, not my bully, my partner, Chris Burlow, Grandmaster Chris Burlow, we're the ones that kind of like founded United Martial Arts Centers with one other of my friends and colleagues, this guy, Ed. And him and I would always meet, and we'd always talk about how we can expand our businesses and whatever. And so we always talk about writing a book. So the three of us collaborated, and we all got this certification. But we all had successful businesses. You know, two of us had martial art businesses. My friend Nick had a successful financial service firm, but his best friend, this guy Rick, was like a retired millionaire before he was like, 30 or 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And we all collaborated, and we created our company, Empowered Mastery, and we co-authored the book, You Have Infinite Power, together. And then from there, I kind of branched off, and I kind of expanded my worthy ideal where, I'm inspiring, leading, and teaching business owners and business leaders to really just to become the best version of themselves, right? For them to create multidimensional success. You want to say hi real quick? I'm on a live podcast. You could just introduce yourself, Mr. Adam.
Hi, Mr. Adam.
What's going on? How are you?
Good. How are you?
Put your
Doing very well, thank you.
I'm Pierce. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Pierce. You enjoying your day?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good.
I'm gonna share.
All right, love you.
I got your packaging.
Thank you. So, and that's where we kind of pivoted, and then we created that company. And then since then, I've been kind of like doing a lot of business coaching, life coaching. I have since then kind of exited and retired from my martial art businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I just do full-time coaching and executive coaching. So I don't know where I start, finish. It's kind of like a transitional story, right? Into
that's
getting
awesome.
bullied to Karate Kid movie to Think and Grow Rich, and have this whole evolution of like this path that I'm on, right?
For sure. There's like 5 billion places I kept wanting to interrupt or jump in, but I was like, just let this flow. We'll see how it all goes. I got a list of notes here. Let me see how I want to go about it. It seems, if I were to guess, that obviously family was rather important to you when you were down here in Florida. So I'm going to rewind a little bit and go into more on a personal note, kind of go deep with like maybe your parents and what it was like growing up. I got the bully part, but you said you're the oldest of 6?
Oldest of 5.
Oldest of 5. Okay. So you're the oldest of 5. What was it like growing up where you were? And like, tell us about your dad and what that was like, because that's going to lead into some of my other questions I got coming up.
My dad's great. I think men, the word men, a man, my dad's a good man. Hard worker, man. Financially, he struggled. He did not, and he would admit, he defined success as family. That's the number one way he defines success. But my dad worked real hard. He went the path of, he's a blue-collar electrician, union worker,
mm-hmm.
right? He had many opportunities to open up his own businesses. His belief, his paradigm was, if I open up my own business, I won't be here for you kids. Dude, that was his belief, right? And then work real hard, honestly, probably paycheck to paycheck,
mm-hmm.
right? I don't know how they did it in the 80s with 5 children,
Yeah.
He was married at 20, had me at 22. My mom and him were high school sweethearts, you know what I mean? Can't even make it up. And they moved out of Yonkers, New York to Putnam, Westchester County, which is, more back then it was more like the sticks, right? The suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
From where they were raised, and he just went the blue collar route, man. Money did not come easily and effortlessly. Our vacations were jumping in my mom's white Caravan and driving to Orlando, Florida for us to compete in the junior nationals. You know what I mean? I had no comparison of what that was like. We eat pasta and meatballs every day. I used to think because you're Italian, that's what you do, but it wasn't because we were Italian. They had no money. Like, what else are they going to feed me? Feed us. pasta meatballs. You know what I mean? I was just, all right, this is what Italians do. But no, it's because they didn't have the money to feed everybody, you know? But what the hell we know? We were loved. We had a roof over our head. You know, if I wasn't training in Taekwondo, I was outside, out and about, riding my bikes, building tree forts, ripping on my quad, or, you know, playing manhunt. Dude, it was a great childhood. You know, growing up in the 80s and the 80s, right, early 90s, I graduated high school. It was great. No cell phones, hardly like not that many video games. I remember when Atari came out. I remember Atari, playing Atari.
Oh, yeah.
The first time. You know, like that was it. You know, but we were outside all day until my dad gave a whistle. I ran back home. Would eat, go train, come back at night, play manhunt in the summertime. But money didn't come easily and effortlessly to my family. So I had a really awkward relationship around my money blueprint, and a really awkward belief about being a business owner. So honestly, as much as that was my dad's paradigm, and I don't poo-poo on it, that's what he just thought, I actually use that as leverage. I wanted to prove that I can be an entrepreneur, be fit, be an entrepreneur, make a good living with integrity, not screw anyone over, because that's, my dad would still, to this day, he would go do work at your house, pay for all the material, and Adam, you go, hey, Mr. Melella, how much money do I owe you? And be like, just give me like $200. Meanwhile, it cost them $300 for the material.
Yeah.
You follow me? Like he would never charge anyone every money. He had this fear of like just being a good guy. I'm like, Dad, you've got to charge. You have value. You know, like you got to be worthy. And he would never do it. Never. And I wanted to prove that you can be a business owner. You could be fit. You can have an unbelievable marriage and be a good dad. That was literally one of the things I wanted to prove, right? And that is my whole message. Multidimensional success. That's my term. Multidimensional success. I just got off the phone call, right? I mean, onboarded a new client, and he's a young man. And I said, listen to me. If all you care about is making income and increasing your production, and that's all you care about, I am not the coach for you. Yeah. Can I help you do that? Absolutely. But what I'm going to hopefully plan, you are in a different season of life right now, like he's in the spring season. But if your vision is to become financially secure with integrity, be a good husband, be a good dad, and be fit, I'm the coach for you. Yeah. If that doesn't resonate with you, just tell me right now, because I don't want to coach you. Right? That's been my mission, right? To lead, teach, and inspire future leaders, business owners, and business professionals to reach their personal full potential in all areas of their life so they can achieve multidimensional success and live a healthy, happy, fulfilling life with a sense of passion and purpose. That's my worthy ideal.
I don't think you've ever said that before. That sounds like the first time you've said that. Like you have that clearly memorized. You've got a passion behind this. That's phenomenal. Yeah.
Not anywhere. I'm not reading anything.
No. You had your eyes closed and everything, man. And you could feel it. It was inside you.
Read, and then I feel it in my DNA. Like I cannot not help myself to do it. Right? Can't.
That's phenomenal.
Whether I get paid for or not. Like that's just my life legacy. Right? So going back to my old man, I had to really break through some financial paradigms around money. I had to break through what it meant to be a business owner and prove that you can have it all. People are like, oh, what do you want? Your cake and eat it too? Yeah, why the hell would I have cake if I can't eat it? That's the stupidest metaphor ever.
It's dumb.
You know what I mean?
Yep. So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, where do you think your dad got? So your grandpa, I want to go back one more layer. Like your dad's dad. Like what kind of life did your dad live growing up that may have started him on that path?
Good question. My dad's actually the only one. He's the second out of four. My grandfather died at 54 years old, maybe 53, man. He was super young. And he was not a blue-collar guy. Actually, let me take that back. My dad's handy, really handy. He could build, dude, let me tell you right now, I don't own a tool. I wish I tried as a kid. Like, it just skipped my generation. You know what I mean? Like, literally, my wife is more handy than I. People will try. Like, I always have this belief, like, I'm not a man, so I can't manually do. No, Frank Sinatra didn't move pianos, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good at one or two things. I stink at everything else. But the one or two things I'm good at, I believe I'm the best in the world at. I'm a legend in my own mind. I don't need to do all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I got a guy. How about that? I make enough money to have a guy.
Yeah.
Right? So, my dad's dad, my grandfather, was, he, just before he died, he was going to be like one of the presidents or vice presidents of the Macy's union. Like, he was more like in the corporate sales, for Macy's. He made enough money, 4 kids. My dad's oldest brother went to college, military. His younger brother went to Cornell. Guy's in banking, just retired banking, like he's loaded. And then his sister, my aunt, I think she went to NYU, so they're all educated. He's the only one that went blue collar route. And I think what ended up happening is my grandfather told him, if you're going to do that, you're going to be an electrician, you got to get into the union. Because my grandfather was in the Macy's union. I guess he always had union is safe route, right? That was their belief. Yeah. Growing up, my dad was a Democrat. He's not anymore. I thought, well, like, what do I do? I'm like, he's like, hey, son, you're a business owner. You have to choose the right thing. Yeah. So he definitely, here's what I tell my kids, what I get from my old man? We get blue collar grit with white collar thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I teach my kids. You're going to have blue collar grit, white collar thinking. We live in a nice community here. We live in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, right? So it's outside downtown Charleston. So it's a nice area, man. There's beautiful homes everywhere, like Lululemon, puts a Porsche dealership, Mercedes dealership. I looked around, made sure I was going to put my kid in the right environment, right? My son's best friend got a brand new Tesla. I looked at him, I go, here's the deal, Pierce. You ain't getting a Tesla. You ain't getting a new car. You know what you're going to do? You're going to go to work.
Yeah.
He works in the restaurant around the corner, and he washes dishes.
Nice.
For like $18 an hour. And I said, you're going to, and so did my daughter. My daughter worked as a barista in a cafe. She babysat, she had 2-3 jobs. So does he. And I said, you work, you're going to earn money. Whatever you save, Mom and I will match.
Mm-hmm. You
pay your own gas, I'll pay the insurance. But damn sure I'm not giving you anything. Yeah. I'm not giving you anything. I said, when I was your age at 15, I taught Taekwondo twice a week. I worked in this clothing department store in the mall on commission. I learned how to sell. Mm-hmm. And I worked in a bagel store on Sunday mornings. Okay. I bought my first car, my own insurance. It was a 1979 Cutlass Supreme that I bought from my aunt for like $500. It was silver. I tinted out the windows, put rims and tires on it. She couldn't believe it was the same car, right? And I paid the insurance, and I worked, and I did my thing, man, So I'm going to teach my kids the same thing. I will give you opportunities. I am not handing you anything. You will have opportunities around you. It's up to you to take advantage of the opportunities. What did my dad do? Yeah, he didn't have money to help me open up a business. He went and he bartered, and he gave me an opportunity. I felt compelled for the damn sure not to let my old man down after what he did to help me to barter that martial arts school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so for sure.
That was a driving force for me. So my dad was the only one that didn't go to college, but he went the union route. And he had a friend, this guy Pat, that said, come on, Paul, let's open up our own business. And my dad, at the time, he only had 3 kids. Now he's like, no, I can't. I got 3 kids. I got to do this. Now, meanwhile, Pat Spirelli, he owns commercial real estate in New York. Huge. Spirelli's electric contracting. Guess what? I think 2 of his sons took over the business. Loaded, retired, Florida, golfs all the time. He was at all. His kids were a lot younger than me. We went to the same high school. He was at all the games. He did everything. He had that mentality. Meanwhile, my dad, paycheck to paycheck. Same house.
When did it click for you to kind of make that decision? So you mentioned earlier that you had an awkward belief behind the money in the business. How did you go from that awkward belief to knowing you could do it, or at least knowing you could try? Like, where did that pivot for you go?
I remember going to these conventions, these martial art business conventions early on in my career. They were in Orlando, Florida. And, a good friend of mine, this guy, Ed, who we end up collaborating and kind of like creating an organization together. He was a good mentor and a friend of mine. And he's like, you have to go to these conventions, and I was already on the personal development world, right? Literally, I got addicted to that personal development world. And I'm like, listen, I know Tony Robbins would always say success leaves clues, right? You don't got to like reinvent the wheel. Find out who is the best in what you want or what you do and go model that. So I remember going to these conventions, and it was, you go to these breakout sessions and you're learning from everybody in the industry, right? And they had this like an awards presentation at the end of the weekend. And, I was a new school owner. I was 21, 22 years old, right? And I got this dinky like recognition leadership award. I'm like this, like everyone gets a trophy type of thing. I'm like, I wasn't trying to be ungrateful, but I'm like, all right, this is not me. And I'm looking at these people on stage, and they were like the top 10 school owners in the martial art industry based on revenue and production and enrollment, whatever. And I'm looking, and maybe part of me was like judging them, which I, subconsciously, I think we all do. I'm looking like, man, that dude got that level school, like he's doing that level of business. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, he wasn't a good fighter. He wasn't a good competitor. Like he looks like that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this is how I was thinking at 22 years old. I'm just being transparent, right?
You're still being Cobra Kai.
Well, I am being Cobra Kai, and I'm judging in a way if it's good or bad. I don't know. I'm like, well, he can do it. I can do it. You follow? And I was like very bold, like, I'm coming back top 10 next year. And I did. Next year, top 10. Year after, top 3. Yeah. After that, number 1. You know what I mean? Until I kind of broke away from that little organization that used to hold those events. But that was my driving force. Here's the thing, man. I got this voice in my head called second best Paul. I'm going to be open. Second best Paul. My whole martial art career as a fighter, I would win state championships, right? In New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I go to nationals. I always fall short. I'd win like silver medal, bronze medal, silver medal, bronze medal. I always fell short of that national championship. And when I became a business owner, I was like, never again do I want to be second best. Never again. I hate being average. I hate sucking. Right? As a coach, I'm going to make national champions. As a martial art business professional, I want to be the top 10. Right? Now I call it, in my tribe of people I coach, I call it the uncommon club. Like we want to be the one in the 1% of our industry. And so I don't care what industry you're in, just be the uncommon, be that 1 to 5% in your industry, in your whatever. Right? And so, I just hated being second best. I hated being average. I hated being just average, comfortable, blue collar, middle class. I wanted to be different. I want to be uncommon. That second best Paul created perfect Paul. Now let me reframe. No human's perfect. I am a Christian. I believe that God is perfect, but I believe that we are byproducts of God, so we have perfection within us. So one of my empowering statements I say to myself is, I'm a student first, I'm continuously learning and growing, and I'm grateful for my progress towards perfection, right? So my original teacher, besides my dad, I learned a lot from my dad, but I also learned things that I didn't want to become. My original teacher, Mr. Connolly, the Cobra Kai guy, that 6'2" guy, heavyweight national champion, at the time in the 80s, 3 successful martial arts schools, amazing competitor tournament team fighters, built a brand new house, Corvette, Harley Davidson. And all of a sudden, he thought he was the you-know-what. Left his teacher, left his grandmaster, never went to conventions, never had a coach, never continued learning. And then what happened? What happens if you're not growing, Adam?
You're dying.
You plateau.
Yeah.
You're comfortable. And then what happens?
Yeah. All downhill.
When I tell you, man, he declined fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Another empowering or impactful story is I remember this is after I bought the school from him. He knew the school was doing really well. I started this company, Empowered Mastery. I bought one of his schools. He closed one down. He downsized his other one. And I remember I was in a suit because I'm about to go give a presentation. I pull up in a white 750 BMW, LI, right? The big boy car, right? The 4-door, And I was going to pick up some workbooks from our printer because I had exercises for a seminar I was going to give to a bunch of executives. And I look, it's around January, February. And next to the printer shop where I was getting these workbooks was his martial arts school. And the kids were off that week. So it was like winter break. So I'm not kidding you. I look in and I go, man, right? And I swear to you, he looked like a 360-pound Forrest Gump. He had the beard bigger than you, long ponytail, like in the same warm-up suit that he wore probably back in the late 90s, man.
Yeah.
Sitting, watching kids play dodgeball. I come in, I bow, I give him a big hug. How are you, sir? Oh, great. Bobby his son is going to be a hand surgeon. Eddie's graduating. Everything's great. Meanwhile, when you look at his face, what can you tell, Adam?
Yeah, he's lost. Yeah,
he's lost.
Not him anymore.
Yeah. Right? I'm in a suit, fit, sees this nice car outside. And then, how's mom? Oh, great, sir. Everything good? And he puts his hand out. He looks at me and he taps the top of my hand. He goes, continue to be great. I'm proud of you. And I left. That was that February. That June, he died. Early 50s, man. Right? Because he didn't take care of his health.
Yeah.
So my teacher, Grandmaster Kim, we're having tea that Friday morning. He goes, you want to know why he died? No, sir. Why'd he die? He think he know everything. Big head fall over. He leave his master. He have no coach. He don't go to seminar. He doesn't listen. He doesn't take care of his health. He doesn't get financial advice. No health insurance, no life insurance, nothing. He left his wife desolate.
Jeez.
Right? Desolate. She had to close the business, go back to work part-time. The only thing he probably had was his house that was paid off, right? Because he probably paid in cash back then. No legacy. The reason why I'm so driven into growth is because of that man, right? My second mentor. So I observed people I respected and loved, my dad and my first mentor, and I was at least had the awareness of some of the things I wanted to be like, but I also knew the things I had to avoid. And I used both of those stories as fuel for me. Prove to my dad I could be a business owner, be fit, be a good husband, and be a good dad. Prove to my old teacher that I will continuously be a student, even though I'm Grandmaster Melella. Who cares? If you're not learning, you're not growing, you're dying. Like, where am I going Wednesday? I'm flying out to Salt Lake City Wednesday because I'm going to pay some guy to teach me on how he's scaling out what he's doing in his business. Because I'm like, wait, you're doing what? I'm like, I will come out to you and I will learn what you're doing. I'm humble enough to learn, right? I'm always investing in myself. I mean, I'm the coach, but I'm investing in myself because I'm also a student.
Yeah.
Until the day I die, I will always learn, right? And I think that that's important. So those are the things early on in my life that I learned, and I knew that I'm going to be growth oriented. My son Pierce asked me a couple of weeks ago, I picked up a new Gladiator truck and I had it wrapped. I had some work done to it. So I'm like, come on, Pierce, come get the truck with me. So we're driving back and he doesn't really talk that much. He's 15, So it's like, hey, Pop, what's your worst fear? I'm like, wow, what a great opportunity to have a dialogue.
Yeah, no joke.
I'm like, you know what, Pierce? If you would have asked me that question when I was your age, probably into my early mid-20s, I would have said fear of failure. All right, that would have been my worst fear of failure. But honestly, through my research and studying, I think that some of the most influential peak performers in the world, and even the men and women I coach, and my own entrepreneurial experience, failure is actually an ingredient to success.
Sure
You
is.
have to fail in order to succeed. Without it, I don't see it possible. Nor do I want to study anyone that was like just landed on Success Mountain. I want to learn from people that went through adversity, had challenges, like went through pain and whatever, and then became victorious, right? So honestly, you have to embrace fear. Now, I know we're not going to correct, but I told him you want to make fear your witch
Yeah.
with capital B, right? Like in other words, you own it, okay? Embrace it, okay? I said, if you make a mistake and you don't learn from that mistake, then you're an idiot. Now, if you can't embrace failure and keep that temporary failure as a part of your, embrace it, like it's a part of life, then go get some kind of 9-to-5 job, punch in, punch out, don't think, and that's cool, man. Like that, if that's your definition of success, that's great. I go, but if you ask me my worst fears right now, it's plateauing in life, becoming complacent. That's my worst fear, right? And to be clear, growth isn't always financial for me.
Yeah.
Like income wise, it could be another piece of property. It could be my spiritual connection to God. It could be how I improve as a husband, right? How I am as a dad, what my fitness is like, at almost 50 years old. I'm a physique competitor. People are like, well, why are you doing that? Life is more than about having abs. Well, first of all, I like to have abs. That is a part of it. I'd be lying if it wasn't. But you have no clue why I train. Like abs aren't the reason why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those are some really deep, I psychoanalyze myself deeply. Reasons why I do things. And I use them, I like to think, as triggers for me to be better every day. That's what Grandmaster Kim calls il shin, right?
So one of the things I say oftentimes, and I try to talk to people through, especially when I'm talking finances, is we all kind of have a wireframe built in our brains, right? From when we're kids, it's one of the reasons I always ask about people's dads, like because they help build our wireframe of how we see life. Like, things go back to whatever the wireframe that was built. So if I go through a situation in life, I put it through the wireframe that I have, that I've built around who I am, about what I've got going on in my life. And then I can move forward looking through that wireframe. And until somebody or something comes and garbles that wireframe up and says, no, that's a bad wireframe, you need to figure something else out. For me, with money, I just knew that I was paycheck to paycheck because that's what I always saw. I didn't know any different. That was the wireframe I looked through. Everywhere I was around, that's what they did with their money. They all spent their money. The government gave me a paycheck every 2 weeks. So what else am I supposed to do? This is just what you do. So until I met my wife, who had a thing called a savings account, that's when I was like, wait, people do that? Like, what do you mean you save money? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, right? So I busted that up. And as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing multiple different wireframes that got crumpled up at one point or another. Or it sounds like you were aware enough to know where you wanted to go already, that you took the pieces from the teachers that you had, and then you kind of created some stuff. But there were a few wireframes that you had that it seems that you crumpled up, threw away, and then rebuilt, right?
Yes,
so whether it was, business, right? You saw what your dad said, and you were like, I can see where he's coming from, but I think I could do better. I need to crumple it up. Like, as I'm walking through, I'm trying to figure out, how did you get to some of these pivot points in your mindset and your thought process, that you kind of like. There are always triggers in our life that change the way we view something else, right? You went in and saw your first mentor, and that was probably a large trigger point for you, and went, I need to learn from Grandmaster Lee because of what I just saw from there. And you were able to get a bunch of different information from it. So now, I had like 4 questions I was going to ask, but I'm going to change it to this. When you're raising your kids right now, how do you ensure that the wireframe that they have builds them up to be you've got one son, one daughter, right?
Yes.
How are you ensuring that the wireframe you're helping them create, the lens that they're viewing their life in, is the lens that makes sure that they are always in a growth mindset, always in the gain and not the gap? How do you kind of work that into your kids' life?
So that's a great question. And there's another story. So both my kids, they didn't have a choice but to go through my martial art program. Now, were they as passionate as my brother and I and became like masters and went to that, By the way, my brother became a business partner, and we own the businesses and our commercial real estate together, right? When my children earned their black belts, both of them got a gift from my wife and I. And there were 3 swords, right? There was a small sword, a medium sword, and a big sword. They got like in the sword holder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have one in my office here, right? So imagine there's 3 of them: small, medium, and big. When we gave them the 3 swords, which was a tradition that we started, I shared a story with them, and I said, "Listen, the story goes as follows. Grandmaster Kim talks about there's 3 realms in our life. You should get a guess: our past, our present, and our future. The small sword represents your past, okay? And the past is extremely important, right? I think it's important to reflect on our past. So another little metaphor, I say, if we're driving and all of us are in the car, and I have my wife and my children in the car, we're going cross country, every now and then I got to look in the rearview mirror. I got to check it just to see what's behind me. Now, I think it's important for us to do reflection on our life every now and then. I can go ahead and I can reflect on me winning a national mountain bike championship at the age of 40. I can reflect on these past bodybuilding competitions or any successes that I had in my past. But I will go up to New York for the holiday break in December, and I may, most likely, I do meet up with some older friends that I love. I don't always hang out with them all the time. And when we meet, you know what the conversation or dialogue is going to be about? They're going to talk about the highlight of their glory days back in 1992 and 1993 of them playing lacrosse or baseball or football. And that's fun to go ahead, but it's the same story over and over again for the past 30-something years.
Yeah.
That is literally the pinnacle of their life, man. Can you imagine the best part of your life is when you're 17, 18, 19 years old? Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
I feel bad for you if that is the highlight of your life at that early on in the stage, right? So that's why that sword is so small. You could go back and reflect on the past and embrace successes and wins, or maybe even regrets to learn from those mistakes to improve. But if you look in that rearview mirror the whole time while you're driving, what happens, Adam?
You're crashing.
You're crashing, bro.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people live their life.
Sure.
They live their life in the past, crashing mode. Okay. It's useful to check, but you can't live there. Now, the medium sword, my humble opinion, symbolizes your present. I had a very difficult time staying present. I was like the movie Click, man. I was trying to fast forward my life a lot until I became a dad. When I became a dad, that was a big opener for me. And my wife called me out. We're sitting here every morning. We have tea, like on the floor, the Korean tea ceremony, every day. And then I'm sitting there. We have tea every morning. Since my kids have been born, they've been doing this. Okay. There's a reason for that. If you want to re-ask me, I'll tell you that story. But I'm sitting there and no cell phones are there. And my wife's talking or whatever. And then I'm like, she's like, Paul. I'm like, what? She goes, are you here with us? Like, no, because my mind is like, what's the call? What's the email? What's the business? The fire? I'm not being present. And she helped me. And when she helped me, I'm happy, grateful, present. I live in the moment. I still plan for my family's future. I'm happy, grateful, present. I live in the moment. I still plan for my family's future. I had to recondition for me to be more present, right? So if we're driving, we're checking the rearview mirror, we're looking, but every now we're giggling, we're singing. Then we got to live in the what? Now.
Live in the now.
Because this is what we have, Adam, right? This is what you and I have right now. We're going to be present. And I'm all for the live in the now and be present and kumbaya. That's important. A lot of these coaches say that. Guess what? You can't just get stuck in the present, because I don't know about you. If I'm not paying attention driving and I'm looking in the rearview mirror and I'm connected with Gina and my kids, but I'm not what?
Not looking forward to the future.
What's going to happen, Adam?
Yeah. You're going to crash again.
You're going to crash, hit a pothole, hit a deer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So all these other coaches that talk about being the present and now and that's awesome. But it's also a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
You have to focus on your what?
On your future, your
You've got
growth.
to focus on the future. You've got to be able to keep your eye on where you want to go, right? I am famous for asking my clients, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Step one of my process is clarity, right? Clarity. This is a GPS. If you don't have the exact address in here, this isn't going to take you where you want to go. Okay. The reason why that sword is the biggest sword, because to answer your question, this is what I tell my kids. You know what Melellas do? Melellas always make our future bigger and better than our past. Melellas always make their future bigger and better than your past. That's what I tell them. You got blue collar grit, white collar thinking. Melellas always make their future bigger and better than their past. That sword is supposed to symbolize growth in their life. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. You always improve your life. You grow, you improve, you challenge yourself. You take yourself outside your comfort zone. You push. Why? You heard this, you got to get comfortable getting uncomfortable. Because if you don't, you're not going to expand. You're not going to grow, right? In my world, I will be 50 in a couple months. In my world, I'm not even at the halfway mark.
Yeah.
Not even at the 50-yard line. If I was able to achieve whatever level of perceived success from 0 to 50, man, what can I do with another 50 years of my life with what I've learned already? That's how I think. That's how I think. I will tell people I will live over 100 years old and I will be fit. I'll be vibrant. I'll have my marbles until God gives me this last breath. I will continue to inspire as many humans as I possibly can with that gift. I am a vehicle. And I say, I will always make my future bigger and better than my past. So those three swords, all three realms are important. That's a metaphor for us. There's one in my office in New York. When I bring clients in and we start off having tea in the morning, I show them the three swords. I show them a picture of Grandmaster Kim, and I will always give him credit because without him, I would not have the knowledge and the guidance. So I always give kudos to the teachers and the mentors that help me.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that's a constantly revisited thing with the kids. Whether it's at tea every morning or whatever, but it's I mean, you, from the time that you left Florida and to go help your brother, it seems the family's been an extremely important, I mean, probably even before that, I would imagine it's built in. I mean, your dad told you that I mean, that's success for him, his family. So for me, the family side of the house is such an unbelievably important part, way more important than whether my bank account has a bunch of money in it or not. And you and I on our pre-call, we both in our own way basically said, hey, God's number one, wife's number two, kids number three. And it's completely evident that to me is the best way for me to live my life and the best way for me to be able to even show up for anybody else out there. One thing that I've been trying to teach my kids, and I just had a tough conversation this morning with my 4-year-old boy. He's about to be 5 in a couple weeks. But I've been telling my boys that my role is to help raise them to be better men than me. Right. That's my whole goal in life, is to make them to be better men than me. And both of my sons have taken it almost as an insult, and I haven't figured out how I need to reword this. But like, my oldest son was like, I don't want to be a better man than you, because he just looked at me as like the pinnacle of a man, and which, boy, does he have some learning to do if I'm the pinnacle of a man, right? So, which is why I want him to be a better man than me. So, and as I'm trying to raise these boys to be amazing young men, they're 9 and 5. How do I get these guys to be on the right track? What are the words, like how powerful are our words that just me saying that I want them to be better men than me can break them down? So what kind of thought process, I'm going to take a selfish moment here. What kind of thought process can I pass on to these boys that gives the same ideas with different language? Because the language we use with our kids helps create that wireframe I talked about before. And I want them to look at it from a positive light and not a negative one.
It's a great question. I'm still learning. I'm in the teenage phase. Our daughter has really embraced the lifestyle thinking that my wife Gina and I have, right? Mm-hmm. She really has. And she also, when we were living in New York, and she's a theater person. She sings, she acts, that's her passion. but she also became an instructor in our Taekwondo program. So she was like engulfed into our leadership course. She became an instructor. She formed a really powerful identity, right? And our son, he was the kid in my martial art class that was always trying to get my attention in a negative way.
Yeah.
Like, you follow me?
Yeah.
He's a lacrosse player, which is fine. I love the sport as long as he has something, right? So to answer your question, I'm still learning because I'll be totally transparent. He's my, if I'm Batman, he's Joker. If I'm, you follow me? He's like, I think at times, sometimes he's wants to be oppositional at this moment, at this season of his life. All I could do is set an example and set a standard, right? And my world is, I'm just going to lead by example. I'm going to lead in my fitness. I'm going to lead in my connection to God and how I operate as a Christian. I'm going to lead on how I treat my wife and how I lead and how I treat my mom and my dad, my family, how I treat my clients, what I represent. And I will continuously raise my personal standards as a human. And I am praying that he follows that path or a similar path. He does not have to follow, like, this is weird. There are 3 words that Gina and I constantly tell our kids. And through when you're speaking to men or women, but mostly men I coach, right? Let's just say, when they have like some limiting beliefs, or I call them paralyzing paradigms, or things that kind of maybe were challenges from their childhood, it always came back to like what their dad didn't do, their mom didn't do. You follow me?
Yeah.
So the 3 words that I always say is, regardless, I love you, I am proud of you, I am grateful you're my child. Now, I will make very clear, Pierce, I love you, I just don't like you right now. You know what I mean? I just don't like you right now. He would also say, "What? Am I a disappointment?" No, you're not a disappointment. I'm disappointed in how you acted today, or what you did. That's not what Melellas do. That's not what Melellas do. You're a Melella. It's almost like the Lion King. Look in the reflection. Remember who you are. You know what I mean? You're a Melella. Yeah. You're a winner. You're loved. You're successful. Like, I got videos of my kid in the mirror saying all his I am statements. They come walking down the steps. It says, today's going to be a great day. I'm grateful to be alive. Like, we were like drilling these powerful incantations since they were children, right? Most people that I look up to and seek advice that have gone through this season of life, again, mine are teenagers, right? They always say, listen, you're doing everything right. You have a solid foundation. You and your wife, like, we're married 23 years together, 28 years. We left my empire in New York during COVID to come here to give my kids a different experience. They get that now. We're almost been here almost 3 years. When they do go back up to New York, they have a comparison of their life here compared to there. Remember, my son also experienced COVID at 7th grade, right? So 7th grade, no school, Zoom, our businesses were shut. We had traumatic experiences of like fear, anxiety, doubt, the mask thing. We ironically sold our house just, because we didn't know what was happening. Like, we were selling our house without knowing the world's going to shut down. Yeah. After we sold, we were buying these houses on this lake, and then it got kiboshed because people from the city were coming up and paying like 200 grand cash over asking price. Yeah. We lost like 5 homes. Like, this is our house. No, it's not. This is our house. No, it's not. Like, our businesses were shut. Like, stress levels are high, living with my in-laws. And then I'm like, screw it. Babe, get in the Jeep. Where are we going? South Carolina. Have you been to South Carolina? Nope. I heard it's cool. Yeah. Right? And we came here, and then I saw what it was like, and then I'm like, come back. Like, we bought land, we're building a house, right? So I hope that they know that Gina and I have made tremendous amounts of sacrifices for their life experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that they hear this constantly. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful for your kids. Your family first, Jesus first, health first, like, well, not first, but it's all encompassed in Gina and I's value system, right? Those are the most important, right? Our faith, obviously, our fitness, family, finances, but the messages of just saying that you're loved, you're a winner. I remember since they were little kids, I would put them on the bus, and I'm like, be a leader, be a leader, be a leader, right? I would always say to them, right? So, but I'm still learning at them. Our daughter's going to graduate high school, most likely 90% should be going to Clemson University. That's basically where she's going to probably end up going.
Very nice.
Then we're still working on it with Mr. Pierce, but
yeah, I think that tends to be the case with a lot of fathers and sons. Anyways, like there's that point. And boy, it might have even been Anthony when I was talking to him on the podcast. I can't remember, but I think it was him where he was talking about like the first like 5 years of the kid's life is your turn to do like the discipline and do all this stuff and teach them, so that the next years you can mold them into where you want them to be, and then the years after that, you can just be their mentor, their guide as they're growing through life. And there's also on a similar transition, there's the moment, especially with our sons, or with our dads, and depending on how you're looking at it, is you adore your dad, like he is everything to you, and then all of a sudden you like disdain your dad, like he's everything you don't want to see in a father, and then later on you learn to appreciate who your dad was and what they actually did for you. And I know that it's sort of kind of a cliche, but it's also a cliche for a reason, because that you can see the habit, they see the pattern in almost every father-son relationship. Like it's so difficult. There's that point where the son just does not like the dad, and I don't understand why.
I don't have
know
that
how to prevent it.
I'm in it now. Okay.
Yeah.
All I will say is this: what Gina and I focusing on is what we want to see happen. It's not easy. Because you get distracted when you're in the, and it's hard, and it's like testosterone's flying. He's 15, 16, and, he wants to be with his friends. He's working, school, and all, and it's a different world right now. Right. And so, but here's the deal. He's healthy. He's alive. He's an athlete. He comes to church with me every now and then. Like just last week, he slept over his friend's house, and he showed up. He showed up late, but then he sat next to me, and it just warmed my heart. Like I want him in that environment, and he's respectful to other people. So that's, and every now and then he's maybe not that respectful to Gina and I at times, but again, he's at that stage. But what we do visualize is the outcome of our relationship. And Gina keeps on saying that, and she's really better at it than I, because sometimes I get distracted, and sometimes when I get clouded and I can't really see the vision at times. But then, we do our best to create imaginable experiences. So I'll give you an example. My kids like this band Mountain Joy. I don't know if you ever heard of this band before.
Never heard of it.
Mountain Joy. And it's kind of like a Fish Grateful Dead. I don't know if they're Christian band, but anyway, when they're in the kitchen and that band is playing, they're both singing, they're hanging out, and they're sharing their lyrics, and I'm like, wow, like look at this, like they're like getting along, and then this music's bringing them together. So I Googled Mount Joy, and I saw that they were playing here in South Carolina, and I ended up surprising them, like, yo, we're all going to go to a Mount Joy concert. You know what I mean? And they loved it, and we went in, and we did a concert together. Actually, we're going to go see a Christian performer, Lauren Daigle, in 2 weeks out here in South Carolina. And then we have Mount Joy tickets again, and then 2 weeks ago we went to the Clemson game, right? All together. We tailgated and went to the game, and I am doing as much. And then growing up, man, we went snowboarding, they grew up on Stone Mountain, Vermont, every season. Last year, now we're going out to Park City, Utah. So I do our best to create magical experiences so they can remember the things that Gina and I did with them, right? And that's what we're focusing more on right now, is creating those magical experiences. And like Kiana, our daughter, just today, so we're recording this the day after Thanksgiving. So Wednesday night, the day before Thanksgiving, we had some neighbors come over, and my wife was waxing some of the neighbors, and they were breaking out wine and wax, and my daughter was hanging out with us, and she was hanging out with all the adults, and we loved it. And just the other day, like Kiana she's a theater geek, she started singing, and we just sat in the living room and listened to her sing, and we're embracing all these little experiences. And I think that's what I'm really focusing on now, is creating as much experiences as possible. What we also do is we create these one-on-one date nights for the kids. They get one a month with Gina and or I. So like Pierce likes shooting guns. So I go out to the range with a couple of my buddies who are like ex-police officers, and we'll go and we'll shoot guns. Our daughter, she likes to go thrift shopping downtown Charleston, or we just went to the movies with her. We saw the Hunger Games movie that she wanted to do. But one day she was like, "Dad, do you want to go to Starbucks with me and draw?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." We would get sketches and we're drawing, listen to classical music at Starbucks. At a bar, what's the bookstore? Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble. Yeah.
And just doing those one-on-ones on things that they want to do, I think that's key. And then constantly just letting them know that we love them, right? And then that's what Grandmaster Kim says. She's like, "You have to continue to love no matter what. Always loving them no matter what."
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm doing my best to do, man. Lead by example.
Yeah, I figure I'm finally telling my kids I love them enough, because they tell me, "Dad, do you always have to tell me?" And yes, I daggum do. At every moment, I have to let you know.
You know what? My wife's cousin, she lost her son a year and a half ago. 23-year-old kid, and he's was visiting his dad. Is in the hotel room working, and he just dropped dead of a heart attack. 22 years old. I have a different conceptual theory behind that. I don't know if I should get into it.
You and I may line up on that theory, perhaps. Yes.
On that theory, I'm a pureblood, just so you know. It was my family. And that's one of the reasons why we're down in South Carolina, because we were outcasted living in New York, if you can imagine.
Yeah, I would bet.
And so anyway, I can't even imagine, right? My wife's cousin Dawn just constantly posting pictures of her son Matt. And anytime our son is not like being like on point and kind of being not cool, we got to get down to the level of gratitude, and we got to say, our son's alive. He's a handsome kid. You saw him. He's outgoing. People love him. There's 5,000 kids in the school. Everyone knows who he is. He's a varsity lacrosse player. As a freshman, he's a sophomore now. He's popular. People like him, and he's probably just a typical jock teenage boy. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? What could be? It's nothing. It's okay. So that's what I got to remind myself. So I guess I'm coming back to gratitude, right? Just gratitude, right? And then the gratitude kind of melts sometimes. Him just being a typical teenager, that sometimes could be a challenge. Have me on in about 2 or 3 more years.
We can do this again. We can do it again for sure.
Yeah.
I've been using this in the terms of especially my 9-year-old, but I'm replaying it in my brain as you're talking with a 15, 16-year-old, what it was going to look like, right? Because for anybody who listens to this podcast regularly, they'll have already heard this, but there's a certain point in your life where your son no longer, like, it's his last time he asks you to ride on your shoulders, right? There's a certain point where it's his last time that he asks you to, silly things, wipe his butt, do like, and I look at those from this age, right? Because my son's 9, and he asked me the other day to get on my shoulders, and I was like, dude, you're like this massive pile of muscle as a 9-year-old, and you have a not so greatly in shape, multiple surgeries, broken father. I'm not really ready to throw you up on my, you know what? This may be the last time he asked me. I'm putting him on my shoulders. And I told that to my wife, and I put him on my shoulders. So I can handle it. I tell myself I'm I'm broken, and I've been telling the boys that I need to stop saying that nonsense because the words that I speak will come into me more. So I'm not broken, So I look at it in your scenario, and I think to myself, there's going to be a last time where my son walks into my office because he just came home from whatever and looks at me and hey, can I do this or can I go do that? And there's going to be a last time that happens. There's going to be a last time that I get to go to their varsity lacrosse game. There's going to be a last time. And so, despite all of those rough moments that I know are going to come that you're already dealing with, there's still going to be a last. There's going to be a last time that you get in that argument with the kid. And as much as we hate those arguments, they're growth points for both of you, right? They're growth points for both of us. And it's like, okay, well, how do I want to handle this argument if this is the last one I get to have? And in your friend's case, it was Dawn and what was the kid's name? Matt. So in that case, like, there's a last time period.
Yes.
A last interaction period. So if we can always remember that while looking forward, knowing like we're growing and I want us to continue to grow, but there's eventually going to be a last time. And I don't know when it's going to be.
Grandmaster Kim would always say it's -1. I remember we're having tea when we were all living in New York at the time, and he goes, "What's wrong, sir?" He goes, "Oh, well, I maybe see my brother one, maybe two more times."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "What, sir?" "Well, I'm this many years. He's this many years. He lived Korea. I live here. I don't know how much his health is. He's not like me, training and meditate and, vegetarian. And, maybe if I see him 1, 2 more times, that's it." And that got me thinking, like, everything's -1.
Yeah.
Right. So like our daughter is a senior now. Right. So this past March, we went to Park City, Utah, where 4 of us were all snowboarding. And I looked at my wife. I'm like, "One more." She said, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "March 2024. Kiana graduates May of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
We got 1 more of these." Stop. I go, "No, Gina, it's the truth. Like, I'm not putting them on the bus anymore.
Yeah.
Those days are over. I'm not cuddling in bed and reading to my kid anymore. Those days are It's all over. You know what I mean? I can't take my 6-year-old kid and I could probably, but put him on my shoulders. You know what I mean? Can't do that. It's all gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every tea time that we have in the morning, and Keanu knows how valuable it is. There's not many more of those. So that's one way to reflect. But I tell you, man, when I get really sometimes, I think I'm pretty good at being zen, at most times, and not being what I call emotional puppet. But
Mm-hmm.
that dude, my son, he knows exactly what buttons to push on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I get there, okay. And mainly it's because, and I'll be transparent, we talked about standards before. My belief is this: in every category of life, you have a set of values that you live by. So I bet you and your wife have a set of values that you live by in an intimate relationship. I bet you and your wife as a family have a set of values you want to teach your kids. I bet you in business, you have a set of values that you live by. I also believe in your fitness or your spirituality, a set of values that you live by. Okay. What happens is that if people are not congruent with those values, there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And Tony Robbins teaches this, by the way. It's like there's these values, and then underneath that, there's this set of rules. Sometimes my rules are very easy to break, and they're not easy to meet. Mm-hmm. When someone breaks your rules, what does it lead to? Frustration, disappointment, resentment. So I'll be very open. In my family values, 1, it's love. Now, what Pierce didn't do, because we were on the camera, I expect him to what?
Give a kiss on the cheek there?
Yeah, we're Italian men. I'm going to be 50 years old. I kiss my brother. I kiss my dad. I kiss my uncles. I'm very confident in my manlyhood.
Yeah.
It's the first thing I do, because there'll be a time when I can't kiss my old man anymore.
Yeah.
Okay? So when I tell them, like, you have to, the Melellas we love. Love is first. Okay? And my rules are, when you see me, I want to kiss. When you leave, I want to kiss. And you want to say, "I love you, Pop. I love you, Pierce." Because God forbid one of us leaves and we don't say goodbye, we don't kiss, and God forbid something happens to any of us, I have to then live with regret that I couldn't say, "I loved you."
Yeah.
Okay? So love is number 1 on our value list. 2, if you ask me, It's the being appreciative, right? Being appreciative. Like yesterday, we had the privilege of going to downtown Charleston to a really nice restaurant, and the four of us was $1,000 plus tip is what? $1,300. Okay. Now they know that's not the average coin you drop on a meal on Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? And so when my daughter saw it, she was like, Dad, thank you so much. Like we were blessed. Like I told you, pasta and meatballs.
Yeah.
Right. No, my daughter was having caviar. We had, all these different things and the 7-course fixed meal. And then she eats, she's an expensive girl. Oysters, sushi, filet mignon. I didn't have that until I was 30 something years old.
Yeah.
Right. So appreciation. And then for me, some level of discipline, some level of discipline in the home. You just take care of your stuff. You know what I mean? So what if you are not loving or respectful or appreciative, you're not showing discipline, you're breaking dad's rules, and that's going to cause me to get upset. I want say I love you. I want to hug and kiss goodbye. Hello. Just say thank you, please and thank you. We're a please and thank you family. Right? You're going to be respectful, and you're going to be disciplined. It means I look in your room, I shouldn't have to clean your room up. Have pride. Clean your room. Clean the toothpaste in there. Flush the toilet bowl. Here's, you know what I mean? Take your shoes, put them away. Like some level of discipline. My wife and I should not be picking up after your stuff. Like we're not the maids. Have accountability. Right? And so those are the value systems that we want to teach, keep our standard high. But at the same time, when you get really, holy my goodness, it's -1. Right? And also sometimes that stuff can melt everything else away. Right. So I guess there's that like be present, think of like all three realms are important. And so the question is like, just being mindful, and so just being mindful and, making sure that what Tony Robbins would teach me is like, make sure your rules are easier to meet and not easy to break. So you're not in the state of anger and frustration all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, it happened yesterday. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. He slept out Wednesday night at his friend, and we allowed him to sleep out. My wife said, as long as you're home by 12 o'clock. Our reservation is not till 2 downtown. So my wife said 12. Why? Gives him plenty of time.
Yes.
And I told my wife, I was in my Jeep at 1:30. And I'm like, we're leaving at 1:30, whether he's here or not. The flight is leaving. Your flight tonight to go to New York, if you ain't there, it don't wait for Adam. It goes, and that's life. Jen and I were at this workout, this thing that we did at 4 a.m. last Saturday. It started at 4 a.m. If you weren't in that door, they shut the door and they locked it. That's a lesson everyone's got to learn. That's what time it starts, whatever. So I'm like, Gina, this Jeep I'm waiting. And here he comes, 129 racing. And my daughter was nice enough to get him clothes and brought in the Jeep because I was leaving. Right?
Yeah.
He was left home. And I was pissed. Because he broke my rule. Right? You were told this and you're getting, oh no, my so-and-so's tire got a flat, whatever excuse. I'm like, that's not my problem. It's not my problem. That could be another excuse. You have to take ownership and accountability in your life because this is a life lesson. So I'm doing your best to teach these kids life lessons so they're not entitled little you know what I mean? Where they learn, right? And so because like you and I, like we didn't have a lot of things.
Yeah.
You work for, you have a comparison, right? So when, the statement when easy times make weak men, hard times make, like that. So there's that fine line that we want to teach because that's a whole other conversation. I do believe, our society and our country is kind of like weakening what it is to be a man. And so,
don't I know that? I'm tired of seeing 40-year-old boys walking around. It's ridiculous. So,
and that's if they look like boys,
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's true too. One thing I say or one thing that I think, the way that I look at life a lot of times, especially with my kids, is I feel like they walk around with little mirrors over their neck, so that when they're doing something that strikes me and like I really don't like, and they turn and look at me, all I see is myself in the mirror and say, okay, well, I've either caused this, or the reason I don't like it is because it was something I used to do when I was younger that I don't want to see in my kids. And as you were talking, like I'm picturing that, just this morning, I was talking to my son about crying, and I'm not a big fan of crying. I think there's a time and place for crying. If you go and you go and you're playing and you're running and you crash into the tree, I'm perfectly fine. You're going to cry. If you cry because I took a toy from you, no, we're not playing that game. And part of that I think is because I was a big crier when I was a kid. Like I was just like obnoxiously, like looking back on it, to me, I look at it and say that was obnoxious to be that way. Even in fifth, sixth grade, like why are you crying? You're in like when I'm looking back at it now. So I'm wondering if that's why I am the way I am with my boys with the crying. So I want to throw that back at you and kind of say, is there something that you're seeing in your son when those moments, right, when those rules are getting broke, that maybe it's because of something like you set these rules because of the way you used to be, and you don't want that to happen? Is that you think where it comes from?
100%. I've always had a great relationship with my parents. Always. I'm going to make that very clear. I was always very protective. I was the oldest, right, of all my sisters, and especially my younger brother. And my parents would admit that and tell that to you. I definitely gave my parents a run for their money from 15 to 18.
Yeah.
At my age. I was never disrespectful. I just was kind of like a little wild, right? Yeah. He's definitely kind of like that. So I guess my parents were like, well, what the hell do you think you were doing when you were 15? And I said, well, the reason why is because I also caused a lot of pain and disruption for my parents. Well, Pierce, the reason why I'm so much like this is because I believe I didn't have the right mindset in my athletic career when I was your age. I could have been a lot better, and I didn't, right? Like he's like a Johnny Manziel. You know Johnny Manziel, the quarterback? Yeah. Like his coaches call him a gamer. Like on the field, when he's a game, he balls out. Practice, he BS's. You follow me? Like he don't put in that work, which kind of gets me upset because I was like Rudy, working so hard. It didn't come naturally athletic in me, but I also didn't have my mind. I didn't have enough confidence on it when I was his age. He needs more of that like grit, and I want to teach him because so this way he doesn't feel like I felt like you're just settling. You're wasting your time. You're just settling, being, average, So that's one. The other thing is there's mistakes that I made that cost my parents a lot of money. And I'm really grateful that, God forbid, I could have been on the other side of those things. And so someone was watching over me, right? Someone was watching over me. And so like when you make a mistake, dude, it's not all on you. You affect everybody else in your life. You know what I mean? You affect everybody else. So it's not just you that you have to pay the consequence. It's going to be your mom, your dad, your sister, your family. Everyone pays that price. So if there are things that I share with him based on my own personal experiences to help teach him, don't we want our kids to make better choices in life based on our past experiences? But it seems like he is more of an experienced learner, right? Yeah. He doesn't want to like follow success. You know what I mean? And so I just had this conversation with my daughter last night because I do get frustrated. I have kids his age at the gym that like they call me Master Paul. Yo, Master Paul, and they bro hug me and they ask me advice and I mentor them. And then you got kids his age that all know me from this community. They embrace me, right? Meanwhile, he has this, I think, pretty cool dad. You know what I mean? Like, I work hard, I do my thing, like I'm cool looking, right? Like, and I'm not saying that arrogant. I'm just saying that because, it's my confidence. I want to have confidence, right? It's kind of like Deion Sanders. Don't let my confidence offend your insecurity. You didn't make me, you break me, right? Coach Primetime. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Anyway, and here's my own kid. He's not like embracing, the message, the philosophy. But to answer that question, yeah, man, I want to teach him, hey, these are my past experiences. I screwed up. I made so many mistakes. And it put a lot of pain on grandma and grandpa, right? And I would really appreciate it. I can help teach you so you don't have to make those mistakes. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't want to make your life easier. I just want you to be smarter with your choices and in life, right? And so that's really where I'm coming from as best as I possibly can, right? And then here's the thing. I like to think I want to be in control.
Yeah.
And here's the one realization that I've learned. I'm not in control of all the things that are outside my realm. The only thing that I'm in control of is how I think, how I feel, and how I act and respond. That's it. I can't control the market. I can't control my kid. I can't control what's going on in politics. And the funnier thing is that even when I think I'm in control, I'm not. God's in control. And so what I've been leaning more on is praying that God will just put the Holy Spirit in my son's path and just guide him through his life journey. I'm not kidding. Every Sunday I go to church, I have these wooden crosses and we light candles. And every Sunday I write this prayer. Please watch over my son Pierce. May the Holy Spirit enter his heart and have Jesus guide him through his life journey. And that's my prayer every Sunday. I can lead by example. I can be a great entrepreneur, a great husband, a great dad, be fit, just be a good human being and set a standard for my kingdom. But at the end of the day, I'm not in control. God's in control. And I'm just praying and asking him to watch over my kid, both my kids, right? And that he's in control. And I trust. And here's the one other. I know we're coming up on our time soon, but the one thing is to have faith, right? And I have to have faith that God's going to do the right thing, and he's going to put my son on a path for him to be a successful human being and be a soldier for God in this world and be the light that overpowers the darkness that's in our world at most of the time. And I want to be the light. I want my family to be a light. I'm a soldier of God, and I just know I'm on the right side.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's about the best we could do. And many times, like, be a good example, say, let them know, show them the right way to do it. Pray to God every day that it turns out all right. But in the same way, they have free will just like we did. So, they're going to have to learn through it. So
it's going to be his own definition. It can't be mine.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And that's the one thing I said. Now, one of the things I used to say to him was, hey, as long as you're happy, Pierce, if you're happy, and you're a good human being, my job is to help you be a successful contributor to society. That's my job, right? And as long as you find a way to do that, I'm happy, right?
Well, and I would say, me personally, I like to change the word from happy to joy, because happiness can come from a can of Pepsi, but joy can't, right? So happiness can come from a piece of cheesecake, but joy doesn't. So joy comes from a fulfillment inside that is much larger than the little piece of happy. But as I say, Pepsi, as I'm sitting here looking at my can of Pepsi, but man, this has been a fantastic conversation. You and I both have a hard stop here, but I want to throw it over to you if there's any one last nugget that you wish we would have mentioned. And obviously, if you and I have a feeling, could talk for a lot longer, so we may have to do 2 or 3 more of these to really get all of our thoughts out on this. But is there any last thing that you'd like to add before we call it?
Hey man, as long as we're out here, we're all dads, we're all humans. Most of us, I would imagine your audiences, and I like to think that we're an uncommon group of human beings that just want to do the right thing, be good examples. And I believe it's a small circle, my friend, right? I really do. And the more I can be involved in a mission, and here's one of the things that both my wife and I want to represent. I want to represent being a strong man. I have a tattoo of the samurai mask and the samurai with his head down. I love the analogy of like the Last Samurai movie with Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, yeah.
You know, I like to think of all of us like we're like these warriors, right? We're like, and they were perceived, the samurai were perceived as these animals, savages. But no, man, there were warriors protecting their family, protecting their village based on virtues, right? That they've had. But when they weren't at battle, what were they doing? They were meditating. They were doing calligraphy. They were gardening. They were with their family. They were having tea. I want to represent what a man is in the future, where when people might look at me and I'm all tatted out and I'm fit, then they're like, ooh, he's this way. No. But you don't know that I meditate. You don't know that I have tea. You don't know that I pray. I cry in church, by the way. I can't even use that. Crying is a time and place. I go to church. I listen to what's going on. I cry. I break down. I'm like, boom, the Holy Spirit right here hits me. That's when I cry, right? I almost cried when I thought about my own man. So you can be a powerful man and show empathy, show love.
Of course.
In the martial arts, and yang. So I want to show what a true man can be like, being, like we call it, multidimensional, but also at the same time, be strong. But guess what, dude? I cook for my wife. I cook for my wife. I do the dishes, right? I do all that stuff, right? And at the same time, my wife and I show power couple. We respect each other. I don't care if someone makes more money than this and this. I have some people I know that women makes more. Good for you. I told my daughter, you make more great money. You be an alpha female, like you boss lady, but you're also a woman. Embrace it. You don't have to try to be like a guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I want to show that you can be a power couple and a man that's strong and almost like humble and soft and loving at the same time, and shift what it means to be like that, where most men are, my humble opinion, are kind of like acting more like feminine and weak and soft.
Cultures push that on them.
Shifting. So. And where they're damning what it means like to be a strong man.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm like the movie 300. I'm like the last of the Jedi. We're the last of the samurai. We got to stick together. And we got to evolve, and we have to make sure that we show good values. And I believe that, like when I tell my wife Gina, we're like a triangle, right? It's like God, me, and you.
Yeah.
With God and me and you side by side, we could do anything.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, if anybody wants to reach out to you, Paul, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn, Paul Melella, Melella. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, P Melella at empoweredmastery.com. My website is empoweredmastery.com. And my book is You Have Infinite Power. It's on Amazon, on Audible. And awesome. I'm grateful to be on the show, and hopefully we'll be back and we can continue our conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Paul. It was an absolute pleasure to have this good chat with you. Looking forward to the next time, and hopefully one in person.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Like, subscribe, reach out to Paul, especially if you're looking to transform your life. Make it happen. But thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next show.